Hi, this is Mike from Minimal 3DP, and today I want to talk about um, scanning with your iPhone for use with 3D printing. I started thinking about this because Reality this week launched a Kickstarter for their CR Scan Lizard, and I've been thinking about getting a scanner myself. If I'm being honest, I'm not very good at designing things from scratch, and I thought maybe having a scanner would help me be able to make some models, make a model and then clean it up. Right now, I believe the Lizard is, as of today, funded, and the Kickstarter stuff, at least in my opinion, is use at your own risk. But let's go ahead and get started with the various scanners that I've tested on my phone and what I found. Now, when you're using a 3D scanner on your phone, they come in two flavors, Lidar and then photogrammetry. In the case of Lidar, you're taking a point cloud, and that point cloud is being translated into objects. In the case of photogrammetry, you're taking a whole bunch of photos that have some type of overlap, and then when they overlap, the computer uses software, or your phone uses software, to stitch them together and generate a 3D object. Now, I found through my experimentations that in the case of my iPhone 12 Pro, Lidar is not good for small objects. Lidar is more suited for rooms and again large objects. Photogrammetry seems to be the better option when you're looking at smaller objects. So for the most part, I stuck with apps that had some type of photogrammetry. I think I did test one lidar app. Before I get started showing the various apps, for doing photogrammetry, here's the setup I used. I used an iPhone on a tripod, and then I used a cake stand that I could revolve in order to take the pictures. And then I also moved the tripod so I could get like the top and various angles. Now I will point out the cake spinner cost me about $8, and there is a model on Thingiverse, one of the most popular models for a stand you can print. When I looked at printing it, it took I think 3 days to print, and I just decided for $8 I'll just go that way. The various ones I tried were Polycam, Scanverse, Metascan, Trinio, and Clone. Okay, here's a view on my iPhone 12 Pro. First app I tried was called Polycam. Polycam has two different modes. It does have a LiDAR mode and a photogrammetry mode. I actually tried both. Photogrammetry mode is what I wound up going with. And when I'm using this app, one of the things I noticed right off the bat is it supposedly has a way to automatically take photos. So every couple seconds as I'm moving the Benchy, it go ahead and takes a picture. I found this doesn't work well, so I wound up just manually hitting the button and taking pictures, but that gets sort of tedious because in some cases I wanted to take as many pictures as possible, and I think in one of my tests I took over 100 pictures. In Polycam, I'm using the free mode to test it, which I'm allowed to do. You're allowed to do 5 different scans. So here's one of the results. You can see on the front of the Benchy, I think this is actually in LiDAR, Front of the Benchy looks good, but the back does not. Now I tried to do the photogrammetry mode, and you're allowed, as I mentioned, 5 different processes. So my first try was with Lidar, and again that didn't work too well. So then I tried photogrammetry, and you'll notice that the capture processing failed. Since Polycam only gave me 5 tries, my first try was with Lidar, the next 4 failed. So I could never actually test how photogrammetry worked on Polycam, and of course they wanted me to go ahead and buy the full version. So in my mind, Polycam is sort of a fail because I really couldn't test anything besides the Lidar, and I did that with one model. And as you can see, looking at it, it did okay on the front side, but on the back side, and a lot of that has to do with, I've discovered with Lidar, using my cake, using my spinning base does not work well with Lidar. Lidar actually wants you to move the phone, as opposed to photogrammetry, which I can hold the phone still. Next app I did was Scanverse, and Scanverse does not do the photogrammetry. It does the Lidar. So you basically hit it, and what I did was change the range so it's really close. You can see this red line here. Balance it out to about there. And then, as I mentioned previously, I wasn't able to use the cake spinner, so I just had to move the phone all around. And I got a really good scan here of my Benchy. I think this looks pretty good. Again, the back side, because of how I have my desk situated, it's really hard to get the back side, because my desk is against the window, really hard to get the back side here of any model. And I've tried with a little table where I could walk around, and still always one side seemed to be not as good as the other. Now, Scanverse, I was able to use the free version for everything, so I didn't have to pay for anything, so I did like that. I did try using a Benchy that was contrasting colors to see if I got anything different. Again, that back side continues to be the problem. And like I said, I found that with almost all the apps, where one side would look pretty good, and then the back side, particularly when I tried the Lidar, I couldn't get the consistency I want. With the photogrammetry, I much preferred where I could spin the model around and get every different angle. So I had limited success, I'd say, with Scanverse. Going out here, there's a couple more apps listed here, but the next one I did was Metascan. Now, Metascan, as you can see, actually gave me a pretty good model. So I really liked this. And this one was pure photogrammetry. Now, Scanverse you take the pictures on the phone, and then you upload it to their servers where the processing is done. In the case of Scanverse, I think I was able to use the free version, but then they have a monthly cost of like $7.99 or $50 for a year. Like I said, I think that did a pretty good job of representing my Benchy. And I sit here, I can start taking measurements, and like I said, the measurements actually turned out to be pretty good when I'm looking at the Benchy. That was one of the benefits, if you notice here at the top, 2 seconds. So when I hit the button to start, takes a picture, I can move, and it automatically takes pictures. And it requires me to take about 20 pictures to start processing. Let's switch over to my next app, Trinio. Trinio let me again do a couple different modes, photogrammetry. There's my results. You can see it's not too bad. Still have some artifacts and some issues. Some of that may be fixable if I took more pictures or changed how my lighting conditions. The Trinio again had some mixed results, and I think a lot of that had to do with just the number of pictures I was taking. Trinio was another one that I had some issues with getting it to automatically take the pictures. Next app was Clone. Clone's sort of a different business model. You can do the photogrammetry, and you have two different options. You can process on the phone. You process on the phone. You have to use this little mat. Let me show this. To use this little mat, you put your object on it, and then in the phone, you have the option here of doing use a mat or without a mat. If you do without a mat, which I found easier, it processes on clone servers, but it costs credits, and I couldn't quite figure out how the credits work. Apparently, I did buy this app, so I have a certain number of credits, but then at some point you run out of credits and they start charging you. The big problem I had with Clone was you have this dome that you're supposed to use as you go around the phone. Go around the object. It's supposed to clear, but I found it's a pain in the butt to hold the phone at the right angle. I'll be honest, it was really rough to use. This actually did a pretty good job. This model was one that I captured using Clone's cloud, and then this one I generated via capture on the phone. I think it looks pretty good, but still the capture on the phone was really rough, and it took probably about half a dozen to a dozen tries before I could get a decent capture. So that's, I guess, the tests of the various apps I did. I have a couple more apps I tried, but those are the ones where I actually got results. In reviewing all these, the best app I found, I think, was Metascan. That gave me the best results. So here's the scan in Metascan, and then when I did actually print some of my results from Metascan. Here's one of the Benchies I was able to print. It's far from perfect, but it actually does give the general shape of the Benchy. Now I loaded it into Mesh Mixer and made it solid. As you can see, it's not horrible, but also it's not great. I think overall the results I found where I'm really interested in learning more about the scan lizard and seeing what the results look like out of that, particularly with these small objects. I found just the results with my iPhone were very, very mixed. And I'm not really sure. Again, this is something I may try some larger objects, but at least for small objects, I didn't really feel like this gave me the results I needed. So I'm not really sure, and I'm not really. I really believe that the scanners in the phone probably, again, have some use, but for small objects, I don't really think it was very useful, although it did give me some results. And probably the measurements of this aren't horrible. It's just not really what I need. I'm probably still going to go back to learning how to do, I need to learn how to do some modeling myself. Again, this was a short review of what I found with these apps. Again, my name's Mike from Minimal 3DP. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post and I'll get back with you. If you could, hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you again for your time. I appreciate it.